Anchors up, sails at full. Welcome to the Sloopcast. How are you doing today, Kyle?
Doing pretty well, Jared. How are you doing today?
I did a lot this weekend. I'm a little tired. If I'm being real with you, I'm a little tired. But that's okay. We have had, and we've talked about it in little bits and chunks through like either the very beginning or very end of our Wasteland episodes and Ask Sloopcast episodes that we've been doing this month. So we've kind of touched on some of these things, but we decided to do an entire episode of it. That's right. We're doing recruiting. Ohio State had an eventful June and July. Of course, we're just starting in July, but some big gets, some what might look like some big misses. But before I forget, it's a new tradition, but it's a good tradition. I get more in my monitor than I get in my mouth sometimes. But I don't know. You wanna get right into the mock, or do you want to talk about like the new guys as they come up, or do you just want to talk about the new commitments since June? How do you want to organize things, Kyle?
Let's actually just talk about the new guys.
Okay.
The new guys since June 1st. Since June 1st, even though it's been a hot summer so far, the Buckeyes recruiting is even hotter right now. 11 commits since June 1st, Jared. 11.
Yeah.
11. And how many of those? Let me just scroll down real quick here. 1, 2, so 9. 9 commits in the month of June, and we have 2 already, 2 big ones already in July that we'll get to as well. So let's just start in the order of when they came in here. So let's start off with a great name of a in the running back position here.
It's a lofty name. It's a lofty name
from Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah.
Bo Jackson.
Yeah, that's his name.
Bo Jackson.
Then not long after that, only a few days, they brought in safety Fahim Delane. He is from the Maryland area. Good counsel, which I think Ohio State's got a guy or two out of good counsel before, if memory is serving me correctly. Then staying on the East Coast, New Jersey wide receiver Quincy Porter committed on June 14th.
Yep, and then shortly after that, out of the Philadelphia area, Isaiah West, not highly rated currently right now, but obviously Ohio State has Ohio State has their eye on them, and really liked what they see from Isaiah West here. But
sure, like
from the
Bo Jackson is like a consensus top like 125 guy. Fahim Delane's a near consensus top 50 guy. On 3 has him at 88 overall. Quincy Porter, consensus top 100 guy, although on 3 likes him a lot more than the other ones. They have him at 31st overall. Isaiah West, we got a bigger swing here. If we just look at the running backs, Rivals doesn't even have him ranked. ESPN has him as the 33rd best running back. On 3 has him as the 30th best running back. However, 24/7 Sports have him as the 14th overall best running back. To scale that to Bo, Bo's listed as an athlete for the position ranking, so we can't compare that. I trust the coaching staff. I think the coaching staff had the opportunity to get other more highly ranked guys, and they took the commitment from Isaiah West. I trust the coaching staff on this one.
Yeah. And then a few days later, Oddpin Miller out of Mansfield, wide receiver, also coming over to Ohio State.
6'4".
Yeah. Big guy. Big, lengthy guy.
Ohio State has brought in both in committing and also just through a lot of the guys who've had visit. They've been bringing in a lot of smaller guys as well. but then, it's nice to add some of those big bodies in there to complement.
Then we have Jake Cook out of
Ohio kid.
Westerville North, right in the backyard there.
Yep.
And then had Zion Grady, one of top 100 player, edge rusher out of the state of Alabama. I know Jared and I mentioned about getting a kid out of Alabama is tough.
Yeah.
And so this would be a big get if Ohio State can continue, if Zion Grady eventually does sign that LOI to Ohio State.
Yeah, and we'll talk about this later. There might be a third, maybe even a fourth Alabama player.
Crazy would that be? Yeah.
Although, again, we'll get back to this later in the show. Alabama got their revenge a bit too, so we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, but going back home to backyard of Cleveland here, Brody Lennon, tight end, commits towards the end of June, and then the day after that we have Odom, Trey Odom out of Matthews, North Carolina, defensive lineman, commits towards the end of June as well.
Yeah, Odom, almost certainly an interior guy. On3 likes him a bit more than the other services for whatever reason. But On3 has him as a very solid 4-star. ESPN does have him as a 4-star, but I wouldn't call him a solid 4-star. The other two services have him as a 3. I don't care. Just for the record, yep. I think Odom's a great pickup.
So those were the 9. Those were the 9 for the month of June, and then the 2 that we mentioned previously here. Oh, actually, just one mentioned last week. Maxwell Roy out of New Jersey, another kid out of New Jersey, making his verbal commit to Ohio State, defensive lineman. And just yesterday or Saturday, we had a big boom here in our linebacking crew here, in our linebacking department here. Riley Pettyjohn out of Texas, one of the best linebackers in this recruiting class. The On3 has him 33rd overall in the industry rankings here, and the number 2 linebacker in the country.
Yeah. Ohio State has 2 top 5 linebackers in this class right now, which is not something they have done in a very, very long time. I don't know if they've ever.
Laurinaitis, the new Heartline? Question mark?
He's the defensive Heartline. It does look like that, although OG Walton might have something to say about that.
He's got himself a 5-star and a 4-star linebacker now.
Yeah. So, and by the way, just real quick, Maxwell Roy is originally from New Jersey, but he is also currently playing football in Pennsylvania. He's going to St. Joseph's, which in Philadelphia, which is where, of course, Marvin Harrison Jr. played in high school. All right, Kyle, let's get to the mock. Let me switch screens. Now let me zoom in one. There we go. That's better. Line that up a little bit better. All right. Kyle, let's start with the quarterback position. Tavian St. Clair, still in the class, not going anywhere. Class leader. I don't have any quarterback. If you've never watched one of our mock classes before, everyone above the line is in the mock. Everyone below the line is someone who we should keep an eye on.
Yep.
So let's move on to the running backs. I currently have Bo Jackson and Isaiah West, and that's it. I think Ohio State needs a third running back. It's not clear as of right now if that third running back will be a freshman or a transfer. We can and should see Ohio State add a third running back at some point. I just don't, like I said, I just don't know if that's going to be a graduating high school kid or someone transferring in from a different school. Right now, I'm going to leave it as just Jackson and West in the class. Some guys to keep an eye on. Mills Knight out of Tennessee. Marquise Davis is a Ohio kid, but he has been committed elsewhere for a while now. And then Kyle, I promised you 2 additional Alabama names to go with the 2 guys who are already committed in the class. Anthony Rogers, running back from Alabama. I'm not saying it's likely. I'm just saying keep an eye on him. I don't have him in the mock. I could have put him in the mock. I didn't put him in the mock. Any thoughts? Or are we ready to move on to the wide receivers?
Yeah, I agree. I think there will be a third running back here. But yeah, it is pretty open. It is pretty open right now. So yeah, let's move on to the wide receivers here.
Yeah, and we had in previous mocks Jordan Davis in there out of California. Ohio State walked away, and I'm going to leave it at that. Wide receivers. Desi Jones been in for a while. Bodpin Miller, someone Kyle talked about a little bit ago. Got Quincy Porter in the class. I do think this is a 4 wide receiver class. I put Phillip Bell in there. Phillip Bell is a kid out of California. I think he's currently my favorite to take that 4th spot. There are some things to keep an eye on. You got Preston Bowman. Preston Bowman is a wide receiver out of the state of Ohio. Kind of an under the radar kid in the same way Bodpin Miller was. That's probably if I weren't going to put Phillip Bell in, if we get news after we record this that Phillip Bell is actually super duper leaning and almost certainly going to go to other school, I'd probably move Preston Bowman in to replace him. A couple other guys to keep an eye on. Both of these guys out of the state of Texas, Dylan McCutcheon and Braden Robinson.
Yeah, pretty solid class so far here. So yeah, I agree with Jared here. I think this is going to be a 4 wide receiver class here. I don't think Ohio State would get a 5th one in here. Yeah,
and I'm not gonna name names because I've only heard this. I haven't heard this rumor from anyone I trust. So not going to name names, not going to start anything. There's a potential that the 4th spot goes to a reclassify. I'm just going to leave that at that. It could be a 2026 kid reclassifying to 2025 who ends up taking that spot. No names, but it's possible.
All right, and tight ends, Jared. Tight ends. 2. We got two already. Nate Roberts and Brody Lennon are the 2 commits for Ohio State here.
Yeah, they're looked for a long time, like Luka Gilbert out of the state of Ohio. A pretty big miss, honestly, as far as an in-state kid goes. And Brock Schott out of Indiana, a state you want to be like the lead recruiting team in, quite frankly, if you're Ohio State. Didn't get Luka Gilbert or Brock Schott. I don't ever consider a Miami recruiting class to be all that solid, if we're being honest. So it is possible that we see one of those guys get back into this. It is possible potentially that Landon Paces, who is the son of Orlando Pace, we see his name pop into conversations in case one of the other guys decommit, in case Ohio State decides they want to take on a third tight end. But for right now, we're going to leave it at Nate Roberts and Brody Lennon.
All right, now the slobs, Jared.
The slobs. So
the Achilles heel, I'll say for the especially the tackle position here
for Ohio State recruiting. Yeah, absolutely. It absolutely is. Already in the class, Carter Lowe, who is one of the best tackles in the country.
Yep.
Thank God he is in Ohio. He's in the class. He's locked into the class. We feel, Carter Lowe's not going anywhere.
No.
Jake Cook, another Ohio kid, brought in. We talked about him a little bit earlier. He's out of Westerville. If you just look at his recruiting rankings, it's nothing crazy, unless, of course, you look at the rival recruiting rankings, because they like him a lot more than the other services do for whatever reason. But he's definitely an interior guy. He's not someone who's going to be playing tackle. He is an interior guy. He's 6'5", 305 already. I like bringing in Jake Cook, absolutely 100%. I know sometimes people get discouraged by recruiting stars and whatnot, but I think this is a solid ad for Ohio State.
Yep.
Now, I think they add two more. They have a tackle in the class. They have a guard in the class. So I think we had two more.
And they're looking at the diamond in the rough here, Jared.
Right. I think he's just a diamond. I think he's on display.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, he is the diamond. Yep, he is the diamond that Ohio State is wanting to pull in here. David Saunders Jr. out of Charlotte.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, just before we hit the record button here, makes his announcement that he is going to make his commitment on August 17th. And if you haven't been listening to us for a while, we've been saying, we said it many, many times that when somebody makes their commitment date, they've already made their decision.
Typically.
On where they're going.
Yeah, pretty typically true. I like Ohio State here. I'm not going to call it a lock. I'm not going to say he's absolutely coming. I've heard that it's here, and he released the top 4, but I hear it's 2.
Yeah, he makes his top 4, which is really interesting. It was Tennessee, Georgia, Ohio State, and not Clemson, but Nebraska.
Yeah, and we had all heard, I think for a while now we were hearing 4-person or 4-team race, but apparently Clemson has fallen out of the top 4. So you hate to see it.
You hate to see it.
I don't think Nebraska is a contender. Don't rule out Georgia. They're king of the mountain right now. Don't rule them out. But I do think this is between Ohio State and Tennessee.
Yep.
And I do think that it's Ohio State. I've been feeling good about this one for a while. And I say that as someone who very early on dismissed this. Like, we're not getting David Sanders. We're not getting David Sanders. We're not getting David Sanders. We're not going to get him, guys. We never get these guys. We're not going to get them. I don't know how much of that was analysis versus me protecting myself, like just not getting excited about another, big out of state offensive tackle that we just would end up not getting. But eventually I started letting myself believe it. And I really took a hard pessimistic stance on David Sanders ending up in this class for a long time. And I eventually added him into the mock. He is still in the mock. I also have Javon McFadden in here as the second interior guy. Some other names to watch. Ohio kid Nolan Davenport, a Georgia kid, Andrew Stargell. I think Davenport or potentially Jermail Atkins, who is another offensive tackle Ohio kid. If things go bad with Sanders, look for Ohio State to go the way of Davenport or Atkins. If things go, whether Ohio State side or McFadden side, if things go bad with McFadden, look potentially for them to talk to Andrew Stargell out of Georgia. I still have Douglas Utu on the list. I maybe should have taken him off, but I left him. He's the least likely of all of the 8 offensive linemen currently on the screen. He's going to be the least likely, I think. But I think if Ohio State gets McFadden and Sanders, I think that's the class. I think that's the class. Kyle, any thoughts on offensive linemen or the offense in general?
Yeah, they got to land Sanders. They got it. I know that you mentioned. Oh, they look for Davenport or
I know,
or some others here.
I know.
No offense, but they are not.
I know. I don't think they have right now a good relationship with an offensive tackle who isn't either David Sanders or from the state of Ohio. I don't know who the backup plan is. If it's, you know what I mean? There's not another David Sanders out there. Not this class for Ohio State. There are obviously other very talented offensive tackles out there, but Ohio State's not in on those battles. Some of those guys are locked down and locked in, and some of those guys Ohio State never had a relationship with, and it's all or nothing on David Sanders right now. And I say that with all due respect to Nolan Davenport and Jermail Atkins, because quite frankly, I wouldn't mind if Ohio State, if the numbers and the math lined up correctly, that they brought in one of those guys as a 5th guy. I think they have really nice potential. So no disrespect to them. But there's a pretty obvious drop off from Sanders to those guys.
All right, cool. Before we head on to the defensive side, we're gonna take a quick ad break here. If you want to skip out on the ads here, head on over to our Patreon, Sloopcast.
The Sloopcast.
Getting that backwards. The Sloopcast. Thank you. The Sloopcast. Patreon.
No, it's patreon.thesloopcast.com.
Patreon.thesloopcast.com. Wow, I'm so out of it. Patreon.thesloopcast.com. Find out everything in there. It has some great information, great people in there, but become a Patreon and to skip the ads here, and we'll be right back.
All right, Kyle, we are back, and we're on the defensive side of the ball now.
I almost feel like the defensive side's almost solidified. I think they have almost everybody that they want to fill out here.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the offensive side, Phillip Bell, David Sanders, and Javon McFadden were the only guys we talked about as far as being in the mock, were the only guys we talked about who weren't already committed. And as far as that goes, I don't see on the offensive side, I don't see any like huge threats for flips I think the offensive side might not look as solidified as the defensive side, but I think there's a little bit more flip potential, losing some guys who you could, maybe losing some committed guys on the defensive side. I think there's a couple names to watch there to keep an eye on. All right, Kyle, you ready?
Yes, sir. Let's start with the defensive ends here.
Yeah. At the edge position, we have Zahir Mathis from the state of Pennsylvania. We have London Merritt, who is Georgia Florida player, and Zion Grady, who is we talked about at the beginning of the show, an Alabama edge rusher. Now, Alabama got their revenge, however, and I'm keeping Justin Hill on the watch list. But Alabama came into the Queen City, and no, I don't mean Charlotte, came into Cincinnati and stole Justin Hill.
They did, yeah.
And someone asked me the morning Justin Hill was committing. He was going to commit that afternoon. Someone asked me, what are our chances? I go, I'd be shocked if it's not Ohio State. And then a little bit later, we started getting those RPMs coming in saying he was going to Alabama. Now, as far as, edge rushers go, and I don't think Ohio State would mind getting a fourth one, obviously. But as far as edge rushers go, these three are a great class. These three are a tremendous class. You are happy with these three edge rushers. You do not need to add a fourth. Would they have added a fourth if that fourth guy was Justin Hill? Absolutely, they would have.
Yeah,
100%. It. Sometimes people like to, oh, well, he didn't come here because of that. Ohio State wanted him. Didn't get him. It happens.
Yep.
One thing I am going to put Zahir Mathis on a bit of a flip watch. There might be some concerns there. I'm not going to say it's a serious watch. I'm not trying to concern anyone, but one of the things that losing Justin Hill to Alabama does is it really hurts Ohio State if they end up also losing Zahir Mathis. Now, Merritt and Grady are still a great edge rushing duo to get out of this class, but Ohio State only got one defensive end in the 2024 class. They need bodies here. And I do think that there is a possibility that they add a fourth defensive end or a fourth edge rusher at some point. But as of right now, I don't necessarily have like an immediate prospect for that. So for right now, we're just going to look at these three. We're going to keep an eye on Justin Hill just in case something changes there.
Yep.
Defensive tackle.
Yes.
Well, first off, that's wrong. I have Brandon Caesar as red. He is not committed.
No, I was about like, wait a minute, did that just happen?
That is my mistake. No, I just colored him red. And anyway, sometimes you go to color one of the things red and then you end up turning the entire text block red instead by accident. That's what happened there. We talked about Odom and Roy, who are recent commits to the defensive tackle class. Brandon Caesar's a kid out of Cleveland who I think, who I've had in the mock for a long time. And I do still really like his chances of joining the class, but someone you have to keep, there's two people you need to keep an eye out for. And even though if you're looking at the screen, if you're watching this on YouTube, you see Darian Smith and Jaquez Carter on there. I'm not talking about either of them. I am talking about Malik Autry, who, Kyle, I told you I was going to name 4 Alabama players. Two additional Alabama players on top of the 2 who are already committed in the class. Malik Autry. Ohio State had basically no chance of getting Malik Autry out of Alabama until they signed Zion Grady. I think that provides a little bit of comfort for Malik Autry to move all the way to Ohio. I don't think Ohio State was really in the Malik Autry conversation until they signed Zion, or got a commitment rather from Zion Grady. But with Zion Grady now in the fold, I think Malik Autry is a very realistic option.
Yeah, I don't know.
Good.
I was say I just don't know, because he's. Yeah, I know he's been committed to Auburn for quite a while now,
right.
But
and yet he's taking visits.
I mean, I would too. I would too.
We've had that conversation. I know.
Yeah. All right, linebackers.
Hold on, I'm not done yet.
Yeah.
I said there were 2 names to watch. I only gave you Malik Autry. Do you know who that? And the other guy's name is not currently on the board. You know why he's not currently on the board?
Why is that, Jared?
Because he's not technically in the 2025 class at this time. I'm not going to put him on the board until he enters the 2025 class. I'm talking about a 2026 defensive tackle by the name of Jakeem Stewart out of Louisiana. He is at this time in the 2026 class. There is conversations of reclassifying. He is a beast.
All right.
He goes by the nickname Thanos. He is a monster. Would be an enormous get for Ohio State. An absolutely enormous get for Ohio State. And I really like Ohio State's chances, especially if he reclassifies. If he does reclassify, I really like Ohio State's chances. But I'm not putting him on the board until he reclassifies. These are 2025 names. Over here, 2025 names. As long as he's 2026, I'm not putting him on the board. But keep an eye, keep an ear on Jakeem Stewart, defensive tackle out of Louisiana.
All right. Linebackers, Jared. Laurinaitis out here recruiting.
Yeah. 2 top 5 linebackers, depending on the services you look at. You got Eli Lee from the state of Ohio. You have TJ Alford from the state of Florida. And you got Riley Pettijohn from the state of Texas. Alford and Pettijohn are elite ranked guys. Eli Lee, I think, is totally underrated. But he's an Ohio kid, one of the earliest commitments to this class. Love Eli Lee. But Laurinaitis showing off what he can do by bringing in TJ Alford and Riley Pettijohn. Now, I think Texas is going to have a really good year this year. And, they were one of the other, of course, USC was also involved, but, Texas was also super involved in this recruitment. If the Longhorns have a great year this year, just, hope that you keep Pettijohn in the class. You've got him. Yep. Now you have to keep him.
Yep.
And that's going to be a pretty big challenge, I think. Now, we're going to look at some other linebackers. Elijah Melendez, Madden Ferriamo. I include these guys in the graphic as a just in case. This is the linebacker who, as long as Ohio State keeps this linebacker class in place, this is the linebacker class. It's these three guys. As Kyle said, this defensive class is getting pretty close to just being wrapped up. Right now, we're getting, make sure to keep Zahir Mathis in the class, and defensive ends probably wrapped up. Unless a fourth name comes off the top rope that I'm not expecting, or, you convince Justin Hill that he made a mistake and you convince him to stay in Ohio. Those three guys are probably your class if Mathis is able to take care of his business and does in fact come to Ohio State. Defensive tackle, yeah. I do think there's going to be a third defensive tackle, maybe even 4 defensive tackles, depending upon who those guys are. The fourth guy would have to be special in order to make that fourth guy happen. Jakeem Stewart is that kind of special. They'll take 4 defensive tackles if the fourth one's Jakeem Stewart. But I think Lee, Alford, and Pettijohn are your linebackers. As long as they stay in the class, these are your linebackers.
Yep. All right, defensive backs here.
Let's do corners first.
Yep, interesting here on the corners. Yeah, we got Sanchez and Offord in here.
That's our 4th Alabama player, and Naeem Offord. Devin Sanchez, also a 5-star from the state of Texas. That being said, I have no concerns about Sanchez flipping. He's solid. He's in the class. He's a leader in the class. Mm-hmm. Offord, I'm more concerned about. Keeping Offord in the class might prove to be difficult. That being said, now that he's one of 2, maybe one of 3, if you can get Autry to sign, get him to flip away from Auburn, now he's one of 3 Alabama kids in the class. It might really help to solidify Offord's role in the class. But I'm going to be watching Offord until National Signing Day. Like, maybe that's just pure pessimism on my part, but I'm going to be watching Offord until he signs. And Kyle, as the third cornerback in this mock, I have Trey McNutt. That being said, our confidence is waning.
Very, very. Yes, it's going down and down as each day passes by here. It just, at one point, it seemed just a sure thing that he's going to stay in the state of Ohio, playing for the Buckeyes here, but it seemed like he's heading on over to trending on over to Oregon right now.
There's a trend. The longer this goes, the better. I'll say that. I'll say the longer this goes, the better. We don't want him to commit soon. And I don't think he's going to. I think there's a lot of time left in the recruitment of Trey McNutt. Mm-hmm. I know anytime Wilfong drops an RPM, and I'm as guilty of this as anyone else, whenever Wilfong drops an RPM, people are like, well, that's over. McNutt's going to Oregon. It's over, everyone. McNutt's going to Oregon. And I'm as guilty as anyone else when that happens. I'm not judging.
Yep.
But let's not forget that Wilfong put in an RPM for Justin Hill to Ohio State. Tossing that out there. Everyone's wrong. Everyone's wrong sometimes. Dorian Brew, the other top flight defensive back with ties to Ohio. Dorian Brew, of course, not currently in Ohio, but he does have strong ties to the state of Ohio. Committed to Oregon.
He did.
That's not great. Maybe he and Trey are teaming up. I don't think I ever really heard that they were, like a package or anything like that. But yeah, Dorian Brew committing to Oregon is unideal. I think that was a guy we were all counting on and hoping on to join the Ohio State class, and he hasn't. And part of the problem here is that I don't know who, if you get Sanchez and you get offered, that's great. They're two of the best in the country. They're top 5 cornerbacks in the class. But as I talked about, I'm very concerned about keeping Offord in the class. So what happens if you don't get Trey McNutt, you don't get Dorian Brew, and you don't get Offord? What once looked like a slam dunk cornerback class can fall apart very quickly.
Yes.
And that's my concern right now. And I don't think Sanchez is going anywhere. He's a 5-star from Texas. That doesn't necessarily scream solid, but he seems very, very solid in his commitment to Ohio State. He is a leader for the recruiting class. Absolutely 100%. I feel fine about him, but I don't know who the backups are. I don't know who I don't know who the other corners are. Like, these are the 4 guys.
Yeah, that is a big concern here. You got, if I'm Ohio State right now, you got to put your chips on Saunders and on McNutt to figure out what's going on with McNutt there, because if McNutt does go to Oregon there, you got 2 of your top 5, and this is a really, really good recruiting class for kids in the state of Ohio, and you're going to get 2 of those 5 going outside of the state here. That's a big whiff in my mind for this Ohio State team or recruiting. Recruiting department.
Yeah.
Big whiff on Justin Hill.
I know, but this recruiting class also has the chance to be historically great. So it's a little hard for me to say that the entire class is a whiff, because it's not this class
is saying that. Not saying that, but you have 5. You have 5. Currently, you have 5 athletes here in the top 100
from the state of Ohio.
From the state of Ohio, and you're just over 500 on those 5.
And you're not even counting Dorian Brew in that, who again living in Texas but was living in Ohio. He's showing up as Texas on whatever resource you're looking at, but he's very, very strong Ohio ties. Yeah, it's not great. If I don't think the Dorian Brew story is over, for what it's worth. I think Ohio State's going to keep trying there. And I don't think people should be giving up on Trey McNutt either.
Mm-hmm.
And quite frankly, Justin Hill. I don't think people should be giving up on Justin Hill. Ohio State's going to keep trying to get those guys. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. We'll see.
Moving on to safety. Safety feels a little more safe, I guess. A little more complete. You got Fahim Delane, Cody Haddad, Deshaun Stewart. I feel good about all these guys, especially Delane and Haddad. I don't think they're going anywhere. if anything does happen, I think Messiah Delhomme is a guy who is out there, not in the class. I don't think that they take him as a fourth guy, but if one of the other three guys gets cold feet, misses out on the class, decides not to sign, they have a decent enough relationship with Messiah Delhomme that I think a move can be made there. It was funny. At one point, we looked at the defensive backs, and it was just like, we got too many of them. There's too many guys who want to come play defensive back at Ohio State. And then you remove McNutt and Brew from that conversation, and all of a sudden, it starts to get a lot more squirrely.
Yeah, how things have quickly changed.
Yeah.
So with what you have here, Jared.
Yeah.
I'll say currently has 23, and based on like what you have in your projection here, 3 more added onto the offensive line, 2 more on the defensive.
No,
so you're looking at it.
Oh, on the offensive side. Excuse me. I thought you said offensive line. My fault.
Nope. 3 on the offensive side, 2 on the defensive side, 5 more, a 28 class.
Yeah, I think that's totally feasible. I would say that's Kyle, Ohio State's going to lose a ton of players this year.
Oh yeah, I know they will. Yeah.
Ohio State's going to lose a ton of players this year. Kyle, did we get any recruiting based? Ad break. You totally blew past the second ad break. That's it on the defense. If you want to listen to this show ad free, you can subscribe at patreon.thesloopcast.com. If you want to come hang out with us in a digital fashion, Kyle and I are both very active in the Sloopcast Discord server. You can find that at discord.thesloopcast.com. Here is the last ad break now. And we're back. Were there any Ask Sloopcast questions from a recruiting standpoint that you wanted to handle, or are we good to start wrapping this?
From a recruiting standpoint, if David Saunders does commit to Ohio State, will he start at the offense at one of the offensive tackle positions? I'm going to assume the right for Ohio State in 2025.
That's tough, man. That's real tough. That's to start as a true freshman at offensive tackle is incredibly difficult. We'll see. I mean, I expect Ohio State to get these 4 guys and then probably reach into the portal to try and find an experienced offensive tackle. That's how I see the offseason playing out.
Mm-hmm. I like this second question here that we had. In light of the Buckeyes getting verbals from a handful of Alabama recruits.
Yeah.
On a scale of
only 2 so far.
Yeah. On a scale of how Urban left Florida is how Urban left Ohio State, how did Saban leave Bama?
I mean, I think he left them fine. I mean, they're killing it from a recruiting standpoint in Alabama. I know that
they are, like, looking at the rankings. They're second. They're second right now.
Yeah, I mean, once they got their revenge on us coming in and grabbing Justin Hill.
They did.
Like, let that be said. No, I don't think they're hurting at all. And like, if you're expecting a huge drop off from Alabama, you're going to be disappointed. Like, they might, like Saban, no one's in the modern football era. No one touches Nick Saban. as far as just being the best coach. The best college football coach is Nick Saban. Done.
Yeah.
Period. Over. So I'm not saying that they're going to keep doing Nick Saban things at Alabama. Not what I'm saying. But if you're expecting them to just go away, you're going to be very, very sad. That's not going to happen.
Yep. I think those are all the questions we had related to recruiting here.
Okay. I think that's it for the show then. I was
just looking for some just last minute things, see if there's anything last minute that come in here, and I think we may be good here.
Okay. Cool. Do you have anything in Kyle's corner? A lot of soccer stuff recently. Anything?
A lot of soccer stuff. A lot of Olympic stuff here. I mean, we're wrapping up Copa America and we're wrapping up the Euros here. The Olympic trials just finished here, and
Crew with another win.
Crew's on fire. They're on fire right now. They've scored in their last 4 games. They are outscoring their opponents last 4 games, 15-1.
Damn, that's insane.
And they're unbeaten.
That's an insane number.
And they're unbeaten at home in 23 of their last 24 home games.
15-1 fire. 15-1 in 4 games in soccer is an insane stat. What would be the college football equivalent of 15 points to 1 point in 4 games?
I don't know, scoring
like 49 a game and
50
letting
points
up
a game. Yeah, I was thinking 50, like 50 to 7 a game.
Yeah, or just like, so over a 4-game stretch, it'd be like 200 to 3.
Sure.
Am I wrong?
No.
200 to 7.
The Olympics are coming up here. I know a lot of people don't really care too much for Olympics. I'm a big track and field person. I'm really, really excited to see some of these athletes run here. I'm really, really excited for the Paris Olympics here.
Who's that hurdler who you really like?
Oh, Sydney.
Yes.
Yeah, she's whatever event she's going to run, she's going to win gold.
Fair assessment. All right, Kyle.
Yeah,
anything?
I'm really excited. May hear more about it the end of this month and maybe the beginning of August here. So,
all right, Kyle. Do you have anything else in Kyle's corner?
Oh shoot, what was his name? I did.
Can I help? Can I help? No dead air, Kyle.
It was Trevor Bassett. Grew up in Northwest Ohio. Grew up in a high school called Bluffton, really close to my hometown. Made the Olympics. Made the Olympics in the 400 meter hurdles. Went to Ashland University, D3 school. He finished third in the finals in the Olympic trials, the U.S. Olympic trials there in the 400 meter hurdles. So hats off to him, from just a kid in a small town heading on over to Paris. Just want to big shout out to Trevor.
There you go. Little bit of hometown flavor there.
Mm-hmm.
Little bit of hometown flavor.
Bluffton High School and Ashland University grad.
There you go. A little bit of Ohio-based Olympic news. Anything else in Kyle's corner?
Nope, that's it. We'll end it right there.
All right. yeah, tonight's ending music will be Courtney from work. They put out a new lyric music video, so I said, screw it, we'll do that one. So with all that being said, I'd like to encourage everyone to drink local beer, listen to local music, and of course, support local podcasters. Once again, this is Courtney from work.